Welcome everyone to my studio today for this dual painting of Beach Babies, Fun in the Sun. This is a really fun little project. Thanks so much for joining me. So you see how this works, everybody? We've got the two paintings together. You can hang them on the wall just a little bit apart from each other, and that looks fantastic. Or you can frame them and hang them even a bit more apart from each other on the wall. Put them in a nice little beachy frame. You can have a print on archival paper of the paintings, and then you could have them matted and framed and put next to each other. So it's one cohesive theme and yet two paintings. But I like the idea, since they are gallery wrapped, I painted the centers of them and the tops and bottoms to match, and of course the sides. They can sit just apart from each other, just like that on the wall, and that looks really great. If at home you want to do this with me and you want to plan ahead to hang them on the wall, you could buy the thicker gallery wrap frame, you know, when it's a little bit thicker, they're about an inch thick. Then they look really great hanging on the wall. If you do it that way, that's a really great way to do it. The regular nice thick canvases with the gallery wrap frame looks great. So that is it. I still have yet to put a little bit more detail into these babies here and into the foam on the water, but that's basically it. I hope you enjoy this, guys. Let's finish this painting up. So now let's get you started. And we have the two 12 by 16 canvases put together. We go down 7 inches, so not quite halfway down, and make a horizon line. Take it across for both of the canvases. So now we take cobalt blue and we go all along the horizon with that beautiful dark cobalt blue, and then splash it here and there, going about 2 inches down into the body of water, just in a little random wavy fashion. Just here and there, we're just gonna put just strokes of this cobalt blue, and that is going to add some texture and some depth and some shadows to the water. Here we're taking the bright aqua green by Liquitex, it's basics, and we're just bringing those colors together. That's going to go all the way down to the shoreline. Closer to the shoreline, we'll add a little titanium white. But here we want to make sure that we blend these two colors together as they bump up to each other. And you don't have to worry too much if your horizon line gets a little bit wavy and it's not completely straight, because we are going to be adding some islands to the horizon line. So, you know, that will actually camouflage any uneven marks you might have on your horizon. But the horizon will still be straight after we add the islands to it. So this is going to resemble a low tide lagoon style body of water. And isn't this aqua green such a pretty Caribbean color for the water? I love it. So now we're adding the shoreline, and you want to go in a wavy fashion, because you notice when you go to the beach it never comes in completely straight, so you want it to be in a bit of a wavy, uneven fashion. And as you get closer to the shoreline, we're going to add a little titanium white to this beautiful bright aqua green color, and it's going to get a little lighter towards the shoreline, and that way it seems a bit more transparent and a bit more shallow. Do you see it's a bit lighter there? And so far the only brush I've used here is a 3/4 inch flat brush. You can use whatever brush you have, but that's, I find, very handy and covers very well. And I am taking the paint into the edges. Now, after I basically get the entire scene on the canvas, then I'll pull them apart while that paint is still fresh on my palette, and I'll complete the inside portion of the two gallery wrapped canvases. And then I'll also go around the outside and the tops and the bottoms. Here I've added that white. So we're to the shore now. And when you get that done, just kind of blend those colors lightly together. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to take a bit more of the cobalt blue, as I'm doing here, and pull that in and around and throughout the water. That's going to create some depth, because it will be like you're seeing shadows and land and rock formations under the water, just showing that variation of color. That's what it will actually indicate, is shallow waters. And as we go along, you'll see that. So now I'm just taking the cobalt blue and sort of redefining the horizon line. Still not worrying about it being perfectly straight, because like I said, there's going to be some land formation, some islands out there. But when you have the line darker at the horizon, that creates depth. It brings your eyes out, so it's looking far away. That's very important. So now we're going to do the sky using the same brush. You can keep it dirty, it's no big deal. We're just going to do cerulean blue here for the sky and a little titanium white. You can add a little bit of the cobalt blue and a little bit of the aqua in there if you'd like to, for a little variation of color. But I'm just using for cerulean blue and titanium white. And just go in a little crisscross fashion, just get it on there. Don't worry about that. You're going to kind of smooth it and blend it out. And there's going to be a lot of clouds in the sky. So having a variation of tones is great. And then you're going to take the white on your dirty brush, so there's still some blue on there, and just bring that all along the rest of the way down to the horizon line. As you saw in the painting at the beginning of this tutorial, I have a very cloudy sky. A lot of cumulus, big puffy cumulus clouds, the way we see them a lot of times in Florida, even though this is more of like a Caribbean picture, but it's painting, but it's that way in the Caribbean, however you say that, islands too. But you can actually just leave this sort of a cloud coverage if you want to. You don't have to get into all those fluffy clouds. I just made it that way, so you make that sky as cloudy as you want to, or just as clear as you want to. It's going to look great either way you choose to do it. And because we're going to have some pretty little palm trees, in here, and the little children playing on the beach, it's going to be a fun little painting. So however you want to do this, of course, this is your painting, as Bob Ross says. It's your little world. You do it whatever way you want to. So I'm just bringing that to the horizon line, making sure that I don't, disrupt that nice bright horizon line again. And I just pulled some of that lighter color up into the dark blue above. And then I take a blender brush or a little mop brush and just kind of blend those in together, and just take a little circular motion. And I actually like this just the way it is for cloud coverage, just a little bit more. I would just put just a tiny bit more of an accent on that lighter part for clouds if I was going to leave it sparse. But I am going to make it very, very thick, like I said, with Cumulus Clouds. So here I am using my mop brush and just bringing some of that white on there in some circular motions up at the top parts of each of the clouds. So here we're going to make those fluffy little clouds, add them all over the sky here, and we're going to have the larger clouds, which are the ones that are closest to us, are going to be higher up in the sky, and then as we are closer to the horizon line, then the clouds will be further away from us, so they will appear smaller and smaller and smaller as they go further out into the ocean. So when you're at the horizon line, you'll see a lot of little tiny clouds. They're actually probably huge, but because they're so far back, they look smaller and smaller. For a little while, as I'm doing these cloud formations, they start to look like mountain range. And then I come back in and add much more detail to it to make them look more like cumulus clouds, because you want them to go and be very irregular, and that makes them look more realistic. I hope you're enjoying this tutorial. It'd be wonderful if you're painting along with me. If you are, I'd love to hear about your painting and how it turned out and how you did the cloudy sky. Because, you know, like I said, make this sky as cloudy as you want, and you may not even want to put any clouds in the sky. Sometimes you'll see an ocean scene where there's absolutely nothing but clear blue skies, and that's completely up to you, of course. Now after this, we are going to add a little sunshine and some sun rays that will be hidden by palm fronds a little bit and some cloud coverage, but we'll be adding that soon. Just adding a little bit of the titanium white on top of these clouds so that you can see the difference one cloud from the other. And here we're putting in the sun, and I've mixed in a little bit of cad yellow into the titanium white for that sun, and also adding it now to the cloud formation so that we've got some bright yellow in there that's, you know, reflecting from the sunshine. And here are those little small cumulus clouds that are actually further back, just putting some little fine lines in there, just wiggly lines to indicate the ones that are very, very, very far in the distance. So just hang in there through the stage where it's looking like a mountain scene. The clouds are looking a little bit too much like a mountain range, as I said before. But later, when I add some irregular shapes and forms in the clouds, then it looks much more realistic, and that'll come with time. So just hang in there. It then does end up being a very pretty cloudy cumulus cloud sky. Now here comes the sunshine. So we'll put some little sun rays just pulling down from this sun that we have here. Just pull those rays up all around in every direction. So as you're pulling the rays out, you want to keep it glowing closer to that sun, so it's going to be thicker that glow is going to be thicker right around the sun. So just pull it out a little bit thicker, and then the rest of the rays will get thinner and thinner as they get further away from the sun. In this case anyway, you do it however you want to, of course, but just have a nice sun there with some rays, and just keep pulling it there. And then if you want to sort of redefine your sun in the center, you can go in there with a little white and a little cad yellow too. And now that the rays from that sun is shining brightly, as you can see, on these clouds nearby. So I'm using quite a bit of cad yellow in with the white here and pulling those clouds right in front. And here I take my blender brush and sort of go in a circular fashion to give that nice fluffy appearance to the clouds. And that cad yellow, bringing that in there so that all those clouds that are being hit by that sunshine, they have that nice glow to them. And when the palm fronds come over the sides of the picture, that pretty yellow glow will look very pretty, coming out from underneath the palm frond. Does that make sense to you? I hope so. If you've come this far with me in the video, thank you so much. I hope that you go the rest of the way with me and finish your beautiful painting. I hope you're enjoying the tutorial. I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and hit like if you like this video, and it lets me know if you want to see more like this in the future. And I'd also love to hear from you and know what it is you would like to see painted in the future. If I haven't touched on anything that you like yet, just let me know and we'll work on that. So here I'm actually pulling some of that cloud coverage right up in front of the sun, and I make that with quite a bit of the cad yellow and white, nice bright clouds, so the lining of the cloud is going to stand out really bright here. So now we're going to take some yellow ochre and we're going to put in color in this entire shore, and later we take a little bit of titanium white, mix it in with the yellow ochre, and go in different areas of this beachy part of the painting. And we're also going to add some brown in different areas because there'll be some shadows there for the children playing on the beach and the trees overhead. Just a little bit of, and also from clouds, because the cloud coverage would also be reflecting some shadows on the sand as well. And we're just going to pull that all along this shore area and up a little bit into the water a little bit later on, so that some of that is kind of poking through, showing through the water. And now I'm taking a little titanium white and I'm going to put a little foam along the shoreline here. So when you do this, just go in a little zigzaggy fashion along the shoreline, and it doesn't have to be just exactly on the shoreline. It can come a little onto the sand and a little back into the water, because we're going to have a lot of foam in this area where it's kind of shallow here. So this is just titanium white, and I'm using a 1/4 inch ankle brush, just loaded very heavy with the white paint, and just pulling that in. Now I'm pulling some foam in and around in the shallow area here where the water would have maybe receded back a bit into the ocean. And this is just a gentle lagoon type beach, so you don't see any big waves. We will have some indication of waves far out in the water, just some light small waves. And here I'm taking the white, titanium white, and just kind of pulling that in and around just to add a little wave action. And you see how the water looks like it's shallow and like you're seeing some shadows from the sky, and then maybe some land underneath and rock formations underneath. Now here I'm taking the white and I'm just going to add an indication of some waves further out, like I was saying. And I'm going to make it a bit brighter over on the side, left-hand facing side, where the sun is really shining down bright. And so just continue to do that until you feel like you have enough dimension there in the water. And here I took a very watered down a bit of the aqua green, and I'm just kind of pulling a little bit of that into the sand up where the water had basically come up onto the shore and then washed away, and that wave is receding back but left a little bit of the residue of the water, so it's just got a little indication that there's some water there on the land. And then I took some of the yellow ochre and I'm pulling it very, very light, a wash with water and yellow ochre into that shallow part of the water. And here I've taken a bit of the white again, just to kind of brighten up some of those little wave areas all around. I just felt like it needed a little bit more wave action going on there. Just very small ripples, I should say, rather than waves. Yeah, so here I made a little bit heavier waves there, but still just fine, and they're far out. Now I'm taking my my 3/4 inch brush, and I've got on some hooker green and some cad yellow, and I've made this beautiful little bush color, and I'm creating the islands. So you're just going to take that 3/4 inch ankle brush and you're just going to sort of tap and twist your hand with that, and you want to do this little tapping motion because we're creating a lot of bushes on these islands. So there's lots of little trees and bushes, and they're far away, so we're just sort of doing a little tapping motion. And if you would just go down into your palette and every once in a while pick up a little bit of the darker green and then a little bit of lighter green and some cad yellow, and have a variation of colors as you're tapping. So you want to have your brush dirty with those colors, and just tap tap tap, swirl, sort of tilt your brush a little bit, and then taper the ends of the islands. As you see, I'm tapering that island over there on the right hand facing side. Make sure it's tapered right down to the horizon line so it's not like sticking up oddly. And then I come and I take a bit more of the cad yellow with the green, but more on the yellow side, and where the sun would be hitting it, I go ahead and brighten up the bushes where the sun's going to hit. And again with that, now I have, this is a 1/4 inch angle brush I'm using now. Just kind of move your hand, tapping it, scuffling a little bit, and so you want to add some texture. some of those bushes will be popping up higher and lower. So when you add this texture, it's going to look like real bushes. So just continue to do that, and you can make these islands as big as you want or as small as you want. You could even add some little skinny tiny little faraway palm trees, but we are going to have some palm fronds from the close palm trees, so a lot of it's going to be covered. And here I'm taking the dark green and I'm just kind of going along the shoreline and along the horizon line and pulling a little bit of that into the water, so it would create the shadow of the island. So just underneath the island, pull that darker green there, so it's shadowed, but it's not a very, very deep shadow because the sun is like high in the sky. So just enough to indicate a shadow there in the water. Checking, are you still out there with me? Just checking. I hope you're hanging in there with me. Here's the fun part. We're going to put the palm fronds in. So we're going to have some on each side of the painting. And here I'm using Hooker's green, and I have a craft green that's called Tart apple tart or tart apple, and I mix those two together. I also have on the palette cad yellow, a little titanium white, and I have brown. And so what I do is this is a very small angle brush I'm using here, and it's not the 1/4 inch, I think it's a 1/8 inch angle brush. I'll put it in my description below. But I just pull those down and going from light to dark and putting some different color fronds in there and pulling a brown one in here and there, and just kind of being very light and wispy about it and going in all different directions. Well, not all different directions. I mean, they're all going in the same direction, but sort of some are going in a different direction to create some interest to the palm frond. But I guess I shouldn't say in all different directions. And you can make your palm frond, a thick one, or you can make it very wispy. I'm going to make them a little bit more wispy and blowing in the wind. I'm going to have, right now I'm just working on this one palm frond, and then I go over and work on the other side. Then I'll come back and add a little bit more to this. So there is an indication that there is a large tree there, and you'll see like 1, 2, 3, 4 fronds. I think I'm going to have just the corner of two of them, and then one more larger palm frond coming out underneath this one just a little bit later. So I like to take a little bit of brown and just kind of go down the spine of the palm frond, and then I come back with a little bit of the different variations of colors of green and just kind of pull a few that kind of go up over the spine. But I do want the spine of the palm frond to stand out a bit and to really, show up. And so just go in different directions with your different variation of colors, the green, the yellow, the brown, and just kind of alternate here and there just to make it look very realistic. Okay, and now let's finish up with this palm frond for now. Let it dry, and we'll go over to the other side. And we're going to make one large palm frond here, and then we're going to have one more on this side. So there's a palm tree, imagine it off the canvas, and 2 of the palm fronds are going to be showing. So again, the same color combination, the Hooker's green, the Tart apple green, cad yellow, titanium white, and brown. It's burnt umber. And you can just pull those colors in and kind of use a variety of colors, stagger them to make it look very realistic. And this palm frond I made a bit more, a different style, just a little bit more whimsical, a little bit more wispy, and like it's going in a few different directions. Maybe it's an older palm tree. There are so many different types of palm trees. I think that one of my favorite, well, the royal palm is one of my absolute favorite palm trees. Those are the ones that are, they have these sort of palm fronds, and there's usually about 8 or 9 or more. It's an uneven number usually, but they have the tall base, and it's very straight up and down, and then it's very smooth at the top of the trunk, and then it has the bumpy texture coming down the rest of the way, but it's very straight and tall and majestic looking. And then there's the foxtail palm trees. They're beautiful. If you've ever seen them, if you haven't, take a look it up on Google, foxtail palms. The reason they call them foxtail palms is the palm fronds actually look like fluffy little foxtails. They're so cute. And then they have these little island cluster palms. I don't know what they're called, but they come in threes, and 3 of them look like little miniature royal palms, but they're sort of turned to the side, and there's usually 3 of them together, like a little island group of palm trees, but they're all connected. And then there's the sago palms. Those are just small little palms, and the palmetto palms, and there's just such a variety. So here I like the way I had planned to pull this palm frond right out in front of the sun and all the rays of the sun. That was part of my plan, because I wanted that just to show up in the background. That's why I wanted to make it real thick on the center of the sun and those rays bursting out. So you see it really shows up, and it makes that palm tree stand out and come forward for us, and really show up brightly in front of that sun. I like that. So right now I have a lot of very dark leaves on these palm fronds, and so I'll come back with some more cad yellow and even a little bit of titanium white to kind of brighten those up, because they're really getting hit by the sun. In like here right now, bringing in these bright ones, this area is getting hit by the sun quite a bit. And when you're doing the light over dark like that, it really helps it to stand out and gives that palm fronds a very realistic look. So we'll just add a few more colors here, some of the cad yellow where the sun would be hitting this side of the palm fronds. Just a little bit more. And so you can stop whenever you feel like your trees look the way you want them to look. Palm trees, there's just such a variety. You can just do them almost any way you want. So I'm going to add a little bit of texture to my clouds and give them some irregular shapes to make them look less like a mountain range, like I was talking about. So here I'm just adding a little bit of titanium white and cad yellow, keeping it more on the white side, and just adding those irregular shapes. And all the blue that you see in the clouds acts as a shadow for the different shapes of the clouds. So you can just pull that, fluffy, irregular looking white and cad yellow shape in whatever shape or form you'd like to make your clouds, and leave some of the blue, which will, like I said, be the shadow to those clouds. And a little bit later, after I do a bit of the children on the beach, playing on the beach, I come back and I add a little bit more to the clouds and a little bit more of the irregular shapes, and also some texture and some thickness. Just putting the white and cad yellow real thick on my brush, I make the clouds look thicker and more realistic. And there's just a lot of layering that goes on in painting. I do love to layer my paintings. Acrylic paints are not thick like oil paint, so when you're painting with oil paint, you automatically get that thick appearance, but with acrylic it's very flat. So if you come back and you have a lot of white thick on your paint, it can really add texture and depth to the clouds and make them look very interesting. So I'm bringing some real soft, light, puffy clouds, those little explosive clouds, down here closer to what appears to be closer to the horizon, but they're actually further back. So we'll finish up those clouds for now, come back later, and let's go ahead and build a hat here for the little girl that's going to be playing on the beach. Going to have a little boy and a little girl on the beach. So here's the sun hat. We'll just make like a 3/4 moon shape for the top part of the hat, and then it's almost like a giant peanut, the bottom part of the hat. This is like a little floppy sun hat. So take it around, go up where the little head is going to be, and then just pull it there, like see how it looks like, almost like a giant peanut with a bump sticking out of it, which is the top of the hat. And I'm using some burnt umber and titanium white and a little bit of the I'm sorry, not the cad yellow, the yellow ochre. And so I'm lightening it up just a little bit here. It's going to be a straw hat, but I'm not going to put a lot of straw detail into it. I will put a little bit, but we don't have to. It's not necessary to put all the details of the straw in there. Just an indication of a straw hat. So here, this is her arm, and basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sketch it out with this light paint, and then I'll come in and darken it up. But I don't want to do the dark paint because this way I can just kind of fool around with it a little bit, and if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal. So sketch it out with the light paint and then come over it with the shadows and all of that. So here is her chest area, like the little neck and chest area, and her other arm will come out here. She's going to be digging into a little bag, like a little beach bag, little square hard beach bag, and that's like her little toy bag. And then here's her stomach, torso area. And then her leg is going to come out here. She's going to be sitting sort of crisscross legs. So that's her knee. It's come down to her knee there. And here I'm adding a little bit of brown. I liked how it looks, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of burnt umber to help her to stand out there against the sand. And that's her little foot because her one leg is bent. And as I put the burnt umber on, then she'll stand out a bit more. So I've got her leg bent there, and her little foot is leaning up against the other leg, which is going to come out under her arm. There we go. Here's her other leg. And it's bent behind the little toy box, so it'll all make sense once we get the little toy bag there. And that's part of her leg that's sticking out there, her knee, her other knee. Okay, so this is like a little foldable beach bag, sort of. I'm going to color that all in with green, and I'm just using some hooker green mixed with cad yellow, and to make this pretty green will stand out. And she's got her little arm down in the back. I don't know if you can see that right now. So she's sitting down playing in her toys, and then I'm going to have the little boy over on the other painting. So these two paintings are one theme and they go together, but the one child will be on one and the other one will be on the other. So they have to go together as a pair. So now we're painting in her bathing suit bottoms. They're black, so it was a green top and a little black bottom. We'll paint that all in there nice. And I'm going to put, so pull it down a little on the side and then make it go rounded, so that shows how it's going around the leg. And then I'm just putting a little black band on the hat. I like how the black band helps the hat to stand out a bit. And then I got a bit more of the green, and I put a little bit on my dirty brush with some black on it so that it will stand out a bit more, just going around the collar and around the arms, in the armpit area, so that green stands out a bit brighter. And here I just want to put a little bit more definition into the legs and showing where the leg is bent. So the thigh here, just putting a little more definition there and bringing it around where the knee is, and then the leg bends there. So I took a little bit of black on my brush there, and just making some more definite lines on the toy bag. Just bringing that around and kind of squaring it off a bit. And you see now a little bit better how her arm is going down into the toy bag. And later I perfect the foam in the water. I make it a bit more foamy and more defined with some shadows there. Right now it doesn't look very good. It has to have a lot more definition in it there. So here I've squared off that toy bag, and I'm going to put some black handles on the bag. I like the little hat. It's cute, isn't it? So I pick up a little black paint. Well, actually here I guess I'm just lightening this up first, and then I go and pick up a little black paint to put the handles in. So I'm going to put two handles. I just make a little round dot, and then pull it up over the bag, and another dot, and pull it over the bag. And then I'm just going to go around and define the edges of the bag with some of that black paint. So now I'm just going to add a little, sort of like a little bucket, sand bucket. And I'm just using the green and the black again here. Beach Babies, Fun in the Sun. That's the name of the paintings. I like the concept of, having the two paintings together that sit on the wall just a little bit apart from each other. I think that's a really interesting concept. It adds a little interest. The only thing that gets difficult is, signing your name. You want to sign both paintings because at one point they could get separated, but you don't want to have two signatures on your artwork. So what I did is I ended up signing the right hand facing side painting because that's where I normally do my signature. And then on the other painting, which is one with the little girl, I just signed it on the back of the painting. So here I'm just adding a little bit of shadow past the little girl. Later I add a bit more shadow too. And then I'm just lightening up, or darkening up, underneath the hat. Just on her neck area and her shoulders, just bringing in some more definition here. So once we get the little girl all painted in here, then we'll start on the little boy, and he'll just be looking out into the water and throwing a handful of sand. He has two handfuls of sand, and one he's throwing it up in the air, and you can see the sand, like wet sand, going up into the air and out into the water. I'm going to put a little bit more definition in her hat, a little bit of that straw effect, and also with darkening it up, it's helping her to stand out a bit more on the painting. So I'm taking a watercolor pencil just to kind of put a sketch in, just a rough sketch of the baby. And it is just a little baby, just a little toddler. I'm making the one foot sort of coming off to the right hand facing side, like it's lifted up, and he's, it's kind of sticking out to the right. And he's sort of facing the right hand facing side with his hand. This is his hand that's holding the big piece of big wet clump of dirt that he's throwing up in the air. And on the other side here, his hand is bent, and he has a fistful of dirt, but he's not throwing that one. He's just throwing the one on the right hand facing side. Put his little head in there, or his big head. You know how toddlers' heads are larger as they grow into their little heads. And actually, as I sketched this in a little bit later, I realized that the legs need to be just a tad longer, so I do that. But now I've taken some, I put a little bit of the parchment color with a tiny bit of crimson red and some burnt umber and some titanium white, and just tried to make a little flesh color. And the actual brown watercolor pencil kind of blended in with it, but that's okay, it worked. It worked out okay. And I'm putting in his little chubby legs, which I will make a little bit longer. And he's just wearing a little diaper, a cloth diaper, a little plastic covered cloth diaper. So the one hand you see is stretched out. Once I get it painted, you'll see better that it's just straight out because he's throwing the dirt, and then the other one is bent and he's holding on to the clump of dirt. So this little arm is the one that's stretched out. So once his shoulder is rounded, you can see that the arm is, the shoulder, you'll see the shoulder more rounded, and then the arms just stretched out in front of him. It'll all make sense as we paint it. So I'm going to later put some blonde and brownish, like almost like a dirty blonde color, curly hair, and just put some texture in there to make an impression that there's some curls and some thickness to his hair. He's having fun in the sun. She's playing with her toys, and he's throwing dirt, and they're just having fun. And then later we'll add some footprints in the sand where they've been running around and playing along the beach. And obviously the parents are sitting up there. They're just not in view of my painting of the two kids, but the parents are sitting back there on a blanket, probably. I mean, this is just a imaginary world here, so, but we would imagine that these kids wouldn't be out on the beach all by themselves, and this is a very calm little lagoon type of beach, so the parents are just sitting up back on the blanket. Let's pretend. So here I'm just picking up a little bit of the lighter color like parchment mixed with the brown and just kind of stippling the hair in there to give a little texture. And here I picked up just a bit of the parchment, and I'm just putting in some thickness on the hair because, like I said, I want it to kind of appear to be curls, just little wavy curly hair. So now I've taken a finer brush and I'm just sort of adding some the texture that would indicate some curls, and it's far away, so I don't want it to get super detailed. And now I've taken a little bit of burnt umber on my brush and just adding some shadow on the back of the neck, where the spine part of the neck shows up, and then it would be lighter, and then there's a little shadow there, and accentuating his shoulder because the shoulder would be sticking out pretty far when the arm is reached straight out like that, and he is reaching straight out with that fistful of dirt that he's going to throw out into the water. so I'm going to pick up a little bit of the parchment color again and just kind of put some accents, like that's a light spot there where his fist is, and just lighten up the top part of his arm a little bit and the shoulder. Also that part of his face, because his head is turned looking towards the dirt that he's throwing up in the air, the mud. So here's the mud that he's throwing up in the air, and I'm going to lighten that up a little later with a bit of yellow ochre and some white, but it's wet dirt that he's throwing in the air, and in the other hand he has a fistful of dirt, so I just put an indication that there's a little dirt falling out of his other hand there, and a couple little drops of that dirt falling down. And back to his hair, just sort of adding in some back in a little bit of brown texture, because it got a little bit too light for any of the curls to show up, so just adding a little bit of that brown back in, and then again I'll go back over that with some curls of the light color. So you can actually skip the part before of making the hair light in color, and just kind of stick with the dark, and then put the curls over that if you'd like to. It's all part of the painting process. You know, you just go about your business painting and doing what you see and what you think, and then if it doesn't look right, you can always tweak it. Just add a little bit more of whatever you need and correct it. Acrylic paints are very easy to correct. I love working with acrylic paint. It dries very fast, and you can easily go over things if you need to. So that's something to keep in mind, so that you never throw away your artwork and get discouraged. Just always continue painting and make corrections if they need to be made. And just remember, just continuing at it is what's going to give you a complete painting. You just don't give up and throw it away, or you'll never finish anything. I like the little shadows there for the wing area of the back. And now I'm lightening up the skin color a little bit and thickening up his little belly on that right hand facing side, because he is turned towards the right looking at the dirt, so his little belly was a little bit thicker than what I had there. Now you may want to paint these babies to look like maybe your children or your grandchildren or something like that. So if they happen to have blonde hair or red hair or black curly hair, whatever you want these babies to look like, just take a picture of the back side of your babies and do it accordingly. There's his little ears, brightening up his ear, and then also there's a little bit of the ear showing on the other side. So yeah, just make these custom babies to whatever you want to do. That's a fun thing about this. You know, there's no faces showing, so it's an easy painting, you know, just to make them look like a baby that you know that's in your life. So here I'm bringing down his leg a little bit longer. I had mentioned a little earlier in the tutorial that I made his legs too short, so just lengthening them a little bit and bringing that heel down a little bit further. And remember that one leg is turned towards the right because of the way that he's reaching out and, you know, balancing himself and throwing out that dirt. And now just coloring in his little chubby thighs. So now taking some titanium white mixed in with the parchment, just putting some highlights on areas where the sun would be hitting it brightly, just along his thighs, and you see how just those little highlights help this baby to stand out in the painting. So now I'm adding a little bit of the lighter color to the dirt, even though it's wet dirt and it would be darker than what you see there on the beach. It was a little bit too dark, so I just lightened that up a little bit. Put some little pieces of dirt dropping off of his hand there, a little bit more accentuated. So now we're going to add in those other palm fronds on the other palm tree on the right hand facing side, and we'll do that the same way we did the others with hooker's green, tart apple green, cad yellow medium, titanium white, and some burnt umber brown, and just pull those little palm fronds in the area direction of that the palm fronds would go, going down and then forward, and keeping it bright because the sun is hitting. So on those other edges there we add a little bit of cad yellow, and then I'm going to do the same thing with two small little fronds to make the side of that palm tree that's peeking over the edge of our painting, to make that complete. There'll be one small one on the bottom and small one on the top, and then that'll be it for that palm tree. And here we're going to add a little bit more to the clouds as far as making them look less like a mountain range and adding some irregularity to them. And I'm just using very thick on my brush, mostly titanium white with just a tiny bit of the cad yellow, and I'm just fluffing that around and creating some more realistic look to the clouds. Just give clouds your due diligence and continue until they feel like they look real to you. Just add to different areas and leave shadow there, the blue acting as the shadow. But just right now I'm just rounding off those peaks a bit, making them look more irregular. It's a lot of fun to look up at the clouds and see the irregularity of clouds and the different formations from the wind blowing them in different directions, and to try to pick, I'm sure every one of you out there watching has done this, but try to find images in the clouds, like if you see a little dog's face or a turtle's face or an alligator, and it's so much fun to look up at the clouds. I love sitting in my hammock and looking up into the sky and seeing the different formations in the clouds, and picturing. To this day, it was a childhood thing I loved, like all of us probably did, and to this day I love to do that, to see the formations in the clouds. So with paint very thick on the brush, white, titanium white with a little tiny bit of the blue, I am just going along all the entire shoreline where the foam is, and just kind of giving some dimension to that little bit of foam that's all along the shoreline, leaving the brown, the shadow there, so that the foam stands out. So now we just need to add a little bit more shimmer and shine to the water just beneath the sun's glow. So I'm just pulling with my fan brush a little bit of the wave breaking motion there on these tiny little waves in the background. And now adding some shadow to the little boy and the little girl with a very, very light titanium white mixed with burnt umber, just to create the shadows, and then some footprints in the sand. And for the footprints, I just kind of, sparsely add little dots and then sort of fade them out with the brush. And I'm going to do that throughout the entire beach area. This will add a lot of character to the painting. All done, everyone. I hope you all have painted yourself a beautiful painting of beach babies, fun in the sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you'll join me in my next tutorial. I look forward to it. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.